Shalom again, everybody. Ariel Tzadok here from the KosherTorah School, found online at www.KosherTorah.com, bringing to you today's daily lessons in the Sefer Yetzirah. Today is lesson number 62 in our series, and of course, they're dedicated to the safety, health, well-being, and prosperity of everybody around the world today facing the trials and tribulations that we are due to certain current events that are now going in very strange and bizarre directions, as anybody looking at current events can see. Recognize and remember, every obstacle is an opportunity, and within all chaos, there is an underlying direction to bring order. That is the nature of energy. And it's about energy that we are dedicating today's lesson. In this lesson 62, we are going to begin the fourth chapter of the Sefer Yetzirah, and we're going to begin our discussion of the 7 verticles, the Beged KaPoReT. Each of these specific 7 letters, the Mishnah is going to open and tell us, have double sounds to them. Okay. We're going to cover ever so briefly the basic, what we can call pshat, the simplistic meaning of what that is, a little bit of a Hebrew grammar and letter pronunciation, I guess. But then, needless to say, we have to transcend beyond the facade of the surface and get to the true essence of what the message is underneath. So, with no further ado, let's go right into the first Mishnah of chapter 4. And again, we are using here in this series the commentary of Rabbi Chaim Vital and the correlations that I'm going to be providing for specific energies and pathways is in accordance to Rabbi Chaim Vital. And I might add that there are other ways, other opinions, other correlations. Now, right from the beginning, you're going to say, well, Rabbi, why pick this one way over another way? It's the right one, isn't it? Wink, wink. Well, I always have to stop and pause students with that mentality. Remember how we have discussed through this class numerous times about permutations, perceptions, how everything is viewed through the context of the single, and the entire collective is then viewed from that individual context. And everything switches and changes as it is perceived from a different or a second context, and a third, fourth, fifth, and onward. Right now, we're going to focus on a single one. And the others, wrong, right? We don't use such terms in our system. Other systems look for the purity of doctrine, the purity of the system, the, end quote, gospel truth. These are foreign concepts to us. We recognize the fluidity of reality itself. And for those of you who are of the Orthodox Jewish path, Torah observant as am I, you recognize this in our daily affairs. How? Because as you very well know, from synagogue to synagogue, from community to community, there are what we call different minhagim, ways and means and methods of how one observes Jewish law. One, for example, can look at the famous law code, commentary actually, the Mishnah Brura written on the first section of the Shulchan Aruch, and see all the ideas, opinions for practice of its author, the famous Hafetz Haim. And one can go into an alternate commentary to the Torah written on the same topic, written by Rabbi Yaakov Sofer, called the Kaf HaHaim, who brings down a completely different way of observance within a context. One can look at the law codes, for example, of the famous Haye Adam of the Ashkenazim, or the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch of Rabbi Gansfried, or on the Sephardic side, the famous law codes of Rabbi Yosef Chaim, the Ben Ish Chai, or more modern renditions like Yalkut Yosef of the late Rabbi Ovadia Yosef. They're all different from one another. Which one's right? Which one's wrong? That's a dramatic pause for you to consider, that every rabbi who's worth his weight is going to tell you, well, no one's more right and wrong. We don't have that concept of absolutisms. Each one is right within its own context. The context being the congregation, the community, and the individuals involved. So when it comes to understanding energies, please recognize there are objective, factual, real energies. But how you and I are going to receive those energies and interact with those energies are going to be as different as you and I are biologically, psychologically, culturally. So, a very simple example. Let's say you and I, we want to go to the department store and buy some clothing. Are you and I going to buy the exact identical garment? I doubt it. For example, as you know, I'm a male of the species. You may be a female of the species. We're not going to buy the same garments. Sorry, I might have good-looking legs, but I'm not wearing a skirt. I have no good-looking legs. That's a joking. But you understand where I'm going with this, right? Everyone has a different perspective, and we don't say this is right versus that is wrong. So understand the fluidity of things as we discuss this. How do you know what's right for you? That is what we're here to discuss. Sheva kefulot, 7 doubles. Beged KaPoReT. Beged KaPoReT could be, these are the 7 letters, could be read as 2 words, which are the garment of atonement. Beged is a garment. KaPoReT could mean atonement. So, Bet Gimel Dalet. Kaf Pe Reish Tav. Here. This is the handout for today's lesson. And you will see the correlations there I have on the side, which we will be using. But as you can see, there is the Bet, the Gimel, and the Dalet, the Kaf, Pe Reish Tav. This is a standard of how it is understood. The verticals, okay, we'll discuss in a minute. Let's do a little Hebrew stuff here first. All right, mitnahagot b'shtei lashonot. It says here that they go in 2 different tongues, languages, 2 different, if you will, pronunciations. Many are familiar with certain different pronunciations. For example, the bet and the vet are common in modern Hebrew. But when what was his name? Ben Yehuda put together modern Hebrew, he did it in a very almost European way and left out some of the more older Hebrew pronunciations, which, because of necessity in some cases, have actually slipped back into modern Hebrew. So, for example, we have the letter Gimel, which is a G sound. In modern Hebrew, if you go take a modern Hebrew course, no one's going to tell you how to pronounce a Gimel, the G sound, in the second way. That second way is the J, like jacket, or like in Hebrew, check. If you want to say check, please, or write the word check, you would write it with a Gimel with a little apostrophe instead of like the Dagesh in the old way. And that indicates the J sound. In the old Yemenite community, certainly in the Arabic community, these things are still well known and practiced. The next one is the letter Dalet. This gets important. Dalet D. But the other pronunciation of a Dalet is like a TH in the word the. Now, why is this important? Because the code of law, the Shulchan Aruch, pretty much all of them, says that when we recite the foundational prayer of the Torah path, the Shema Yisrael, Deuteronomy 6:5, yeah, I think so. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Eloheinu, Hashem Echad. That Dalet, all right, that last letter is supposed to be elongated. Now, if you pronounce it as a D, how do you elongate a D? You can't. It's duh. Is not a D sound, all right? You can't elongate the D, where is the tongue hitting the back of the teeth. But the Dalet has a second sound, TH, and that you can elongate. So the correct way of reciting the Shema is Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, and you elongate the TH. And it's supposed to get you in tune with like that background noise of silence, which is the Shekhinah, the Malchut, and all that other stuff. So very important meditation. Kaf and Chaf, commonly used in modern Hebrew. Pei and Fei, commonly used in modern Hebrew. Resh, this gets a little interesting. No one is actually sure how you pronounce a double resh. Some will say it's a resh from the throat and a resh roll with the tongue. Some will just say it's a ra 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 sound. To the best of my knowledge, we only know resh or resh, and I don't know anymore. What is the correct way of the double resh? Maybe the Yemenites know. Go ask them. And of course, tav, in the Ashkenazi, they will pronounce the alternative as an S or a sav. This is foreign to everything in the Sephardic and ancient biblical path. So, for example, the famous word mitzvot. Ashkenazim will say mitzvos, while they'll slur it to say mitzvahs. Whereas in the Sephardi, the original Hebrew, it's not mitzvot, it's misvoth. Misvoth. Okay? And that's just the way it is. It says here that the letters are either strong or weak. All right? Rak or kashe. Soft or hard, weak or strong. And that is just ways and means in how letters are pronounced. So let it be. But now we're going to introduce something very interesting. Mishnah Bet. Maybe we could jump right in. There's nothing to hold us back. Sheva kifulot, beged KaPoReT, as we say, the 7, their foundations. Remember we talked about the foundations? These are the energetic forces that materialize as we contemplate the letters and what they mean as paths between the Sefirot. The 7 forces or powers are called wisdom and wealth, seed and life, governance, peace, and beauty, or grace, as some would say. This is important to understand here. This is what we did in the diagram here. And yes, we're going to obviously get into this much, much more in our lessons to come. But again, each path isn't just a letter. Don't think you can contemplate a path just by focusing on a sound of a letter which represents the path. The letter that represents the path is specifically only a metaphorical, symbolic representation of an underlying energy pattern of flowing movement and energy. Now let's explain. I'll give the example of wisdom. All right, from the Sefirat Chochmah, on the right column, going down here to Chesed, is the letter Bet. Now, needless to say, I could go from here down to here, but I can also go from here up to there. All of them. I can go up and down, ascent, descent. Rab Chaim, in his Kabbalah, refers to this as Or Yashar and Or Hoser, which is descending light and ascending light. Now this gets to be very important. We call this Mayim Nokmi, Mayim Duchrin, and I need to explain it to you. The next Mishnah is going to tell us a very important concept, that to each of these energetic foundations that we just said, again, wisdom, wealth, seed, life, governance, peace, and beauty, there are their opposites. What is the opposite? Now, needless to say, everything is in opposites. But here is the big secret you have to understand. When blessing comes down from heaven, all right, God, remember we said in the secrets of the past, things from the above invert and become the opposite here below. That's just the nature, the inversion from the higher dimension to this dimension. So when a blessing comes down into this world, it comes in its embryonic form, incomplete, unfinished, undeveloped. And it is therefore incumbent upon us as individuals to take that energy, which is like this, and to invert it and bring it up. That's the secret of the double paths here. This is a contemplative meditation in which we look at the most embryonic form of a thing and seek how to materialize it and to maturize it. So, for example, our first, Chokhmah, wisdom. Does God really give us wisdom? God gives us thoughts which we need to contemplate, which will lead to wisdom. Wealth. Does God really give us wealth? Do you really have a money tree growing outside in your backyard? I'd love to see it. No, you don't. God is not going to rain down money from heaven on your head. But God will give you thoughts and ideas that upon your contemplation and maturation thereof can materialize in abundant wealth or abundant wisdom or abundant seed, life, governance, peace, beauty. We get the raw element, the raw form of a thing in its embryonic stage. That is the blessing which comes down. That's why it's called seeds. All right? And God gives us the seed form. We are the ones who then have to take those seeds, plant them, water them, cultivate them to grow so that they will mature into the full form. This is the great secret of these 7. Prior to this, we established the understanding of the balance of right, left, and center. Well, obviously, these 7 obviously exist within a context of a right, left, and center in and of themselves. But the movement of these 7, the tapping into the Sefirotic Balima, the 10 Sefirotic Balima energies. Remember, they need vessels. And yes, we say that the vessels that they materialize in are the letters. But what are the letters? They themselves are symbolic of this energetic flow. So if you seek wisdom, what is wisdom? Deeper intuitive insight, penetrating revelation into whatever it is that's before you. Creation of music, science, art, philosophy, whatever. How do you do it? Chokhmah to chesed. Chesed is an emotional structure at the unconscious level of expansive desire to embrace. So when you have that emotional context, the expansive desire to embrace, and you focus it into the imaginative faculty, which is Chokhmah, and you allow these energies to merge as you're contemplating and thinking and being open and expanding, you are taking that embryonic form, that embryonic seed of this source, and you are, symbolically speaking, cultivating it, watering it, nurturing it, and allowing it to grow inside your mind and life. If it's only inside your mind, it isn't going anywhere. It has to materialize externally in the world to make it real. That is the secret of how this works. So, when we are dealing with specific letters, yes, we are going to correlate the letters, bet with all with bet, gimel with all with gimel, etc. We're going to follow procedures with that as well. We're going to see their correlations with days of the week, all kinds of different things, planets, as well as these energies and all these things. This is the foundation of how astrology was developed. Remember, astrology is not black magic, voodoo, hocus pocus. That's nonsense. For the longest time, even in the most religious of circles, it was always understood as part of science. And when understood correctly, can be restored even within the context of modern science. When we dispatch of the superstitious nature of it. Energy is real. Contemplating energy is real. Understanding the nature of the flux and flow of energies what columns, what letters associate. These are the symbolic forms, which, when understood properly, enable us access to bring the higher world down to us here. Check out the courses I have online. See the other things that we have available for you. We'll pick this up in our next class. Ariel Tzadok here, KosherTorah School. See you then. Shalom.